Good morning and welcome to this Corona-proof startup event. I'm here at the FTC Netherlands headquarters together with my trusty cameraman Rob. All the other FTC board members are currently in a Teams call to which the link is shared in the chat. If you want to ask any questions to me or to them about events that might come up in the future, you can ask them in the Teams call and they'll answer them there, or I'll answer the questions here from the field, show you how the field works. Any questions you have, please join the Teams call to ask them. I see we have over 20 people in the Twitch stream, but we don't have anyone yet in the Teams call. So please join us in the call to ask any and all of your questions. I've been told that our Teams call hasn't been shared in the chat yet, but Rob is on it and he'll do that any second now. Yeah, the Teams call is now shared in the chat, so please join us and ask any of your questions. Here you found your way to the Teams call. I hear a lot of people joining right now, so that's a good success. Please, if you're not talking in the Teams call, turn off your audio. I'm hearing myself on the loop, which as much as I like listening to my own voice, it's probably better not to do today. I've been asked to give a few introduction remarks about the game because there's no questions yet. So as you see behind me are the two scoring opportunities, or two major scoring opportunities that you have this year. This year you'll be shooting rings that you can pick up from the match field, and you'll shoot them either into the high low, middle or low goal. As you can see, this is the blue scoring opportunity, but the middle one here is actually for red to score in. So if you're trying to shoot high, but you shoot a little bit too low, you'll be scoring for your opposing alliance. Of course, in the red goal, that has the same problem. You always risk scoring, so you need to be very accurate. Is my... Because it's the day comes fast. Alright, so I'll continue explaining. So one of the other ways to score this year is by using the wobbly goals. During autonomous, you can move the wobbly goals to either this. Okay, you can't see this. I'll show it to you in the red one.
The person talking is muted.
We're having some technical issues.
You unmute this. So if you have the Twitch channel hooked up, you hear the sound of him.
Ben ik nu wel weer te horen?
Op de livestream was het wel.
Okay, so if I'm correct, I can now be heard in Teams again. Okay, so for those of you that only had your Teams open, it was apparently possible to hear me in the Teams call. Now I can't see if I'm on screen, but I'm gonna assume I'm on the screen. So yeah, I was just starting to explain the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is an FTC game played by, as every year, 2 alliances of 2 robots. And the goal this year is to pick up these rings from the field and shoot them into the high, middle or low goal. As you can see, this is the blue scoring tower. And you can score in the high and low goal if you're the blue alliance. But you can also accidentally score in the middle goal for the opposing alliance, or the opposing alliance can score in the middle goal for itself. That is of course also true for the red tower, that you can score in the high and low, but then the middle is for the blue alliance. So that's one way. You can score rings by shooting them in there. But you can also put them over a wobbly goal. And I'll show you the wobbly goal right now. This is a wobbly goal. You can drag it over the field or pick it up, and you can put rings over it to score points. So those are both tele-op scoring opportunities. So you'll probably want to know, how do I score a lot of points in endgame? Well, in endgame you can again use the rings to shoot. This time you can use to shoot over these poles and score points. That means that the human player has to make sure that before endgame begins, their positions back straight up so they can be pushed over. The second opportunity to score is using the wobbly goal again. We're having a little bit of technical issues in the corona-proof environment, but if I'm correct, I'm now again, yeah, you can hear me again. So I was just explaining how you can score points in endgame with a wobbly goal. So what you can do is you can drag the wobbly goal to the other end of the field. Unfortunately, the camera isn't positioned to see that, so I'm not going to walk over there. But what you can do is just drive it over there and put it over the side of the field. So you actually have to extend outside the match field. A bit unique this year. So that's how you can score an endgame. After that, you can also just drag it into the places. There's still a lot of points to be scored. But at this time, I'm curious if there's any questions about the ultimate goal game. To a handheld camera, so now I can move around a little bit. It's also a bit less unbalanced, but if there are no questions at this time, it might be a fun opportunity to take a look at the videos you sent to us.
Oh, wait, we have one.
Oh, we have a question.
Yes, I have a question. You just explained that you can put rings on the wall in Italian. So you can put them in the telly, but they only come up at the end. Is that right?
You're breaking up a little bit, but I think what you're asking is if you can put up these goals before the end game begins. Yes. If you by accident, you can shoot at these during the autonomous period and during the end game. So after autonomous period, the idea is that the human player puts them back up. And if at any time during the teleal period you accidentally shoot over one of them, you're of course allowed to put them back. The rules state that you have to do this before end game with a 5-second buffer if it happens like at the end of end game by accident. But that does mean that you have to put them back up because otherwise you can't score during end game.
We have another question from the chat from Stefan van der Plas. At the start of the game, you must place a wobble in one of the 3 squares. How to know which one of these 3 squares?
So how to know which of these 3 squares? There are going to be a stack of rings ready for you of either 1, 2, or 4 rings. Based on how many rings there are in that stack, you know which square you have to drag them off to. You have to look at the game manual and read exactly how many rings correspond to which square, but it'll be in there.
Mr. or Mrs. Verbakel?
Hello. Thank you for the answer to the last question, but we were wondering, how many rings can there be? We thought it was 0, 1, and 4.
I'm gonna have to look that back, and that might be correct. I'll look that up for you during the video, and I'll get back to that afterwards.
Any other questions? Okay. Then we can play the video roll, and then we can get back to any questions after that.
And today we're coming with an update of our last few weeks. So lately we've been designing a lot of robot parts in CAD, and we've also been building a lot of prototypes. So we are currently testing our prototype for the shooter and the intake.
So as you can see, we're shooting right now. This is our shooter. Our shooter can hit consistently. We've hit like 10 in a row without moving.
Today we've done an interview with a TV network here in the Netherlands. Explain first to some people, explain what we do here. And that was really fun to do.
Hey, great to see from you guys. Before we left, we had a question about how many rings were stacked up, and that is indeed correct. It's 0, 1, or 4 that will be pre-stacked onto the field after you've put your robot ready for autonomous. Yeah, so for everyone that's still in the Twitch call, Twitch stream, please stop spamming POG emoticons. We want to keep it a bit clean, a bit easy to see. So keep the chat open for just regular FTC questions. I can hear you.
Okay. Apparently it's legal to score the starter stack rings in autonomous. Since the number of rings is randomized this year, there are no more ranking points, but the lines are used for ranking. Doesn't this give a slight advantage / disadvantage to some teams?
So yeah, on paper this gives an advantage. Of course, this is a bit phased out due to you playing over at least 10 matches during the league meets, and then another 5 matches during qualifications at the league meet championship. So it'll probably randomize out. But yeah, it's true that to some extent you can have a luck of the draw. One that has just joined us in the Twitch stream, there's going to be shared a Teams link which you can join, and there you can ask the questions or have conversations with other FTC board members. Because I'm here to explain any questions you might have about the ultimate goal game, but they're the specialists in how FTC games events will be run, where you have to sign up for events, who you have to inform about what, and they have all the answers for that. So join the Teams call.
Did that answer your question, Ellie? I hope so. Then we'll go back to the questions from the Twitch channel.
All right. Thank you, Nico and Ron.
Was I don't know though.
Good. We're sharing this Teams call in the Twitch stream, so I think they should have heard it. Heard it?
Perfect.
Improved scoring system, so it's going to be 5 or 6 as a maximum per league meet.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like it's a Teams problem. I can still hear everyone that's in the Teams call fine. So I'm not sure what's happening there.
Right, I can hear you also.
Yeah, so I think what DJ Dan Banaan is talking about is that they couldn't hear the Teams call on Twitch. So in Teams you can hear us fine, but I can hear myself now on Twitch, so it should be working right now. So if you
Failure, but I'm being told that it's plugged back in, so you'll hear us on a slight delay in a bit.
okay. So in regards to the question of Maland Gebotka, are there any other teams experiencing that some rings deform more than others, or are softer or harder? So you have a variation in shooting. If you have so, you can answer it in the Teams channel or in Slack or in Twitch, and then we'll get to the next question. Yeah, sorry.
A variation in match fields, game pieces. I think the official ruling is 1 inch. Of course, on a game piece as small as that, it's not going to be 1 inch, but it's going to be relatively to that. I think a centimeter perhaps. So that's always part of the game, and you're always going to have to design around that.
Yeah. So the original question was also posted in Slack in a while back, where Pink to the Future and Pink Potential noticed that while testing their shooter consistency, they found out that roughly 1 out of 10 rings are much softer than the rest, and that this ring will always shoot with less speed due to the lower squishiness factor. And with a blind test using their hands, they were easily capable to select the softer rings 100% of the time. So it's a general note for every team as well to make sure that to know, at least from the fact that not every ring is similar, and that the squishiness can be different from ring to ring, so you can take it into account for your shooter mechanism. Another question from the Twitch channel: can we already register for the league meets? I think Irene, can you?
Yes, I will answer the question. Next week, you will all receive a form where you can give your preferences. So it will be there, at the end of next week or maybe half next week. And then we hope that we will give everybody de indeling, hoe zeg je dan? Nou ja, and which league meets they are going to play and begin the first week of December. So next week you will get the form.
Yes, and then we'll be waiting with posting the official format for the league meets, depending on the regulations. So we have a couple alternatives on how to organize the league meets, but depending on how COVID-19 is developing and what the regulations at that point would be, we'll make small adjustments just before, so you can expect information about how the league meet will be run a couple weeks before the official league meet date.
In every league meet, there are going to play max 24 teams. So if there are more teams who want to participate in one of the league meets, then we will have a lottery.
Yep. Then another question from Quantum 13. Some teams don't have the field. How are they going to be able to participate if they are going remote league meets? So there is a maybe Tijn, you can explain it, because
there is the possibility to buy the official field.
Yeah.
There is definitely another possibility to buy it from cardboard, build it from cardboard.
Yes, so of course, Ron says option one is obviously ordering the field, but we understand the field is pretty expensive. It has to come all the way from America, makes it even more expensive. But there is an alternative this year, and they really put a lot of work into making sure that it's at least similar to the regular match field. So they put online, and you can find this on the same page where you can find the game manual, a manual to build a do-it-yourself ultimate goal field. So I know for the tower goals, the way to do it is you get cardboard boxes and you cut out the holes for the ultimate ascent rings. You have the option this year to, instead of using the ultimate goal official tiles, to use either your own floor or alternative tiles if we're going to play on a remote system. So they designed the field this year to make sure that anyone can build it at home, even though it won't be exactly the same as on the field here. It'll give you the same challenges, so it'll be a fair playing field for everyone.
Yes, I also shared the resources link to the resource library in the Twitch channel, and there is a direct link to the do-it-yourself field element guide as well. So I would definitely advise everybody to build and follow the manual from the do-it-yourself field guide, because it's pretty cheap, and with some cardboard and tape everybody can make it and test it, and it's definitely good for your team to have it, even if you're going to play in a real life field, hopefully, but make sure to have one. Let me check back to the questions. Okay, so a couple teams are responding to the question from Maland Robotica with the softer, squishier rings. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. Another question from someone in the chat: will there be any significant changes due to COVID at the league meets? We held a presentation about it during the kickoff. It's a pretty long and complicated story, so I will look up the YouTube link from the presentation we've given during the kickoff.
It's on our website, Ron.
Okay.
On the homepage of our website, there you can find a link to the YouTube.
So if I'm correct, the summary of this, yes, there will be some changes. It all depends on how Corona develops further in the Netherlands. If the Corona wave goes on, we'll have some different rules, and if it dies down, it'll of course be more similar to old years. But take into account, for sure, it's going to be a bit different than other years. There's no going around of it. But for the exact rules, go to the FTC Netherlands website, and there's a YouTube video explaining it in a lot of details.
I also just posted the YouTube link in the Twitch. Thanks for the quick update, Irene. We already have a couple of rings that are cracked, torn. So if you already have a couple rings that are broken or very squishy, Tijn, can you elaborate on how many rings you need to have within your playing field if you're going to do a remote match? Are you allowed to put in all good rings if you want to? And how many rings do you need to play a remote match?
So officially, you need I think 30 rings to play a regular FTC Ultimate Golf match. But if you want to play on a remote event, of course, you can only have 3 rings in your robot at any given time. So I think it'll be legal to just use 3 rings and that you keep feeding them back into the field. Of course, it'll make it a bit more tough because you can't get the rings as quickly as you might get otherwise. But you could play the remote events with even just with 3 rings.
Yeah, so then there were a lot of comments about Microsoft Teams not working, but it should be fixed right now.
If there's no questions at this time, there's one question we got earlier that I might want to answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so a while back there was a discussion, I think by the Swiss team, started in the Slack. In the official rules, it says that you can only shoot game objects for a maximum of 4.88 meters. Of course, I've already seen in the video that some teams have already started testing it. And what they have found, or at least what we've heard they've found, is that it's very tough to shoot rings accurately and make sure that they can only shoot approximately 5 meters. So in the referee group, we've discussed this a lot, and we've come to a discussion conclusion, and we've said, okay, if your robot is so good that it always hits the wall, per definition, it can't shoot further than 4.88 meters because the field isn't that long. To prove that you can do that, we can ask a team during a league meet before during inspection, or if we see that it does happen on the field, to prove that they can do cycles without missing the wall. So it can be that your robot technically can shoot further than the maximum of 4.88 meters, but as long as you don't do it, it will be legal in the Netherlands, as long as the rules don't change.
Then there's another question on the Twitch. Isn't the minimum of, it's also in regards to the question about how many rings you need for half a playing field for a remote, because somebody said isn't a minimum of 7, since there will always be 4 rings on the field already in auto. So it's a question for time.
Yeah, that's a good calculation. That makes sense. Yeah, you would need 7. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Okay. Then there is only one more question, I think, that was answered in the channel, which is a question for me if I still love bananas, and I was expecting this question from you, so that's why I have a banana here with me. So yes, I do still love bananas. Thank you.
Seem like it's still the same bananas as last time.
Yeah, they're laying here for 2 or 3 years. I think these are the bananas you gave me last year during an event. So another question. So if you shoot accurate enough, it doesn't really matter how far you shoot?
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah, so if you shoot accurate enough, of course there's some limitations. We don't want to you shooting so hard that we still feel it's dangerous. But yeah, if you make sure that you hit the wall each and every time we will allow you to have a shooter that might shoot a bit further than 4.88 meters.
Okay, and Malend Robotica made a comment about that the game manual for remote event is clear about the number of rings. I'll look it up as well, where they say it's at least a minimum of 10 because the human player will have some as well. So I'm going to look up the game manual for remote events right now, and then we'll give a clear answer on the questions. Are there any other questions in the Twitch or Teams meeting? Otherwise, Nicole and Irene could explain a little bit more about how the judging would be happening in, I think, remote events. So if there are no further questions right now, then I think Nicole or Irene will explain a little bit about the judging.
Okay, here we are again. Remote, yeah, that's judging. It's going to be a little bit different than live. Remote means we'll give you an exact time when you will be interviewed. So the interview, the presentation will be live. We'll have the judges will contact you through, I suppose, MS Teams or whatever, and then you will have to do your presentation. You need to bring along your robot. It's just the same as normal. You do your presentation for at max 5 minutes. After these 5 minutes, the judges will start asking you questions. And then it will be, it's just about 10 minutes max per team. But you have to upload the difference between the difference this time is you also have to upload your portfolio or your engineering notebook, because the judges will need to see that also. But we'll send you a link where you can upload that. So remember that by the time the league meet starts and it will be a remote event, you have to upload your engineering notebook and portfolio. Huh? In the new system. Moet je wel je eigen ding aanzetten. Okay. The difference is also that we'll be back also a second time, because normally we have pit visits, and we'll do that also again. So the judges will come back a second time and talk to you a second time again about all the questions they still remain. So you'll be talking twice to the judges. Yeah, first you do the presentation, and later on they will come back to you again. Irene, do you have something to add?
No, I don't think so, but maybe it's good to mention that there was a new, First has developed a new system for remote events, and all the judging for FTC will go through that new system. So your coach will get an invitation to join the system, and then your coach can upload the portfolio and other documents needed by the judges. So when we have to decide to do the judging remote, then we will give you all the information you need. We will send to you by mail. And like Nicole just said, the interviews will be taking place probably via a link with Teams, and the link will be placed in the remote event hub. So, but all information will follow when we have to decide to do it remote.
What's new this year is that there's a judge feedback form. We never had that before with the FTC. So all the teams went home and they just, never had any feedback. So this is new for this year. So if your team wants to have some feedback after the judging, you have to fill in a form, and the judges will, fill in whatever they think about your presentation, etc., etc. And after a few days, that judging feedback form will be sent to the coach. So you can learn from that again. Well, that's it for the judging, remote judging for this moment.
time to show the video of the teams again.
Yes, we can try that demos for the people in the team meeting. If you don't have any audio,
Unmute the Twitch audio, and then you have audio on the video as well.
And today we're coming with an update of our last few weeks. So lately we've been designing a lot of robot parts in CAD, and we've also been building a lot of prototypes. So we are currently testing our prototype for the shooter and the intake.
So as you can see, we're shooting right now. This is our shooter. Our shooter can hit consistently. We've hit like 10 in a row without moving.
Today we've done an interview with a TV network here in the Netherlands. It's explained first to some people, explain what we do here. And that was really fun to do.
Lovely to see what the teams are up to in these Corona times. Do we have any other questions at this time?
Yeah, there is a question from Wessel why we're using Microsoft Teams and not something like Discord. So for us, it was a bit of a gamble on how we had to organize this event, because originally we were planning on just using Teams, or just using Twitch, and everybody being at the place where Tijna and Rob are now. But due to regulations, we're not allowed to meet with more than 2 people. So that's why we had to split it up. And the original plan was we tested it with the link, and with those that we tested it, it worked. And then everybody could join the Teams meeting. And we could have a call there, and everybody could ask questions in the Teams meeting and be live there as well on camera, and then we would have a little bit more of an interaction. But eventually the link doesn't work for a whole lot of people. So if we're going to redo something in the future with the same format and the same style, if you have any other ideas on how we should organize this, or if you have any experience with it, just definitely shoot a message to us. We are also trying to get another upgrade version of Slack on our FTC Netherlands Slack, and then we can use Slack as well for video calling with everybody in one channel. So that is our main preference, because we would be liking to use Slack more. But currently, right now, we would really like the video call option, but it's not in the package we're using right now. So we're looking into a subscription increase, and then we could use Slack for this as well. But if you have any remarks on how we should organize it differently, or if you want to use Discord for it, just send us a message and we'll get back to you. Another question from somebody in the Twitch channel. What if the ring passes through the hole in the high goal and flies out? This is also a question that was asked during in our Slack call. Was a question, or it was posted with a video. But maybe you can give a demonstration time on what the question is asking, and then you can ask if it's allowed or not.
Okay, so of course, I'm going to explain how it. So the question is, say we shoot in a ring, it enters, it bounces, and it comes back out. Does it count or does it not count? So the rules are actually quite clear about this. Shooting it through the hole is not enough to make it scored. It is only scored once the human player or a referee removes the ring from the other side. So that means if it bounces back out, the human player or the referee isn't in a position to remove it because it's not in there. So it won't count as a scored ring.
Then there's another question from Moshe. When will be decided for traditional or remote league meets? This is a very difficult question. We have been working on multiple scenarios on how to cope with different types of regulations. We've came up with a couple scenarios, but we don't want to post all the different scenarios we have planned out right now. So for now, we made the decision to announce the definite format for a league meet 2 weeks in advance. Let's say if you would have an event on the 1st of December, you would get an update this Monday on how the league meet will be going. So 2 weeks before your official league meet date, you will receive the definite format. And that format for that league meet will be the same as for the league meets afterwards. So we have 4 league meets in total. The first 2 league meets, and then the last 2 league meets, the third and the fourth. Everybody has to play either the first and one of the first and the second, and one of the third and the fourth. And we want to make sure that league meet 1 and 2 are playing by the same format, and that 3 and 4 are playing by the same format. So you will know what to be doing for your league meets 2 weeks in advance. In regards to the question from if the ring flies through the hole, you didn't really explain, or you give an answer to a question, Tijn, but not the specific question. So the specific question from the Twitch chat was, what if the ring flies through the high goal and come out of the other side? So it shoots through the goal and it ejects at the back of the goal. So it doesn't bounce out back on the field, but it goes through the goal out of the field. There is a little gap in the high goal.
Yeah. So okay, that's an interesting question. So the question is, it shoots in here and it comes back out on the other side. That is an interesting question. To be honest, that's a bit of an interpretation rule. The rules don't have any specific explanation for it. I would say because the human player and the referee is capable of getting it on the other side, I would count it. It's a field failure in my personal perspective, but I'm going to be a little bit cautious here. I'm going to say there's no official answer. So if an official answer comes between now and the league meets, my answer might change. But for now, I'm saying I would rule this as scored.
Okay. Currently we're doing a lot of questions in regards to game, judging, etc. But there are probably also a lot of coaches in this call. If you have any coach-related questions or any troubles
or interested in how other team members or coaches are working with COVID or something, feel free to ask those questions as well. And as a general reminder, all the handed in documentation, as the engineering notebook and your portfolio should be written in English. So keep in mind to that. And if you have any troubles with your engineering notebook or certain questions, feel free to send us questions as well. And I see a couple questions. Yeah, so there are some people hinting towards solutions where they go to prevent the ring from ejecting at the back of the goal. I would say if it would be happening a lot during a league meet or during an official event, we as an organization would prevent it from happening. So just as Maarten Robotica describes as well, they've been trying to tape the hole with tape to close the gap, but that wasn't strong enough, and they're using tie wraps right now. If more teams are facing these issues, we'll be using the same measurements, such as tie wrapping, for example, to prevent it from happening, since it's a field design failure and we want to use the normal game flow. Then there is another question. If we have a physical event and we are not allowed to go that event because our school won't allow it, how can we still qualify for the Dutch Championship? So this is a specific question, which is covered in our alternatives for the league meets. So depending on the location where the league meet is held, there might be different regulations, or there might be school regulations that are specifically for one team. We'll try to take them into account, and then it could be a mix of having teams that are allowed to physically meet during a league meet, and maybe some teams that are joining through a live stream or have to send a video, and then they would be joining remote. So there is also a scenario where it's partially physical, partially remote, depending on the location and which teams are going to be joining. But we try to keep as much a general decision that would fit most of the teams. But if your school has really strict policies, and you already know it by now, so let's say your school already said, hey, you're not allowed to go to extracurricular activities outside of school hours for the next 5 months, definitely let us know and send us an email with those regulations so we can take them into account for the league meets. One more question, as long as we... If you put the wobble goal over the wall in the end game, do you need to put it down or may you drop it, Tijn?
So yeah, you don't have to put it all the way down. It's not the idea that you just throw it over, but you don't have to put it physically all the way down. If it drops a couple centimeters, that's really not a problem. You have to take into account that if you put over rings, the wobble goal are susceptible to tipping over, so it might be a risk. You might lose your points for the rings, but you can drop it a little bit. I'm not going to say just throw it over, but a small drop is allowable.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Either in the Teams meeting, which we still have a couple people, or otherwise in the Twitch. The nets are a little low. Wouldn't it be advisable for the human player to wear face protection?
So, Tijn, if I am not mistaken, it's always mandatory to wear safety glasses.
Yeah, of course. It's always mandatory to wear safety glasses if you get into the game area. Yeah, if you feel it's necessary to add on to that, maybe go for a full mask. That's of course allowable. I don't think it's really necessary because shooting this high would be an anomaly. But if you feel more comfortable, if you feel more safe, of course, do it. But safety glasses are you can't get in here without safety glasses. So they are you're forced to wear those. And if you want to go further than that, that's optional. I won't say I necessarily think it's necessary, but if it makes you more comfortable, if it makes you feel more safe, it's always advisable to do that.
Okay. And in regards to the wobble goal putting over the field perimeter, when are the points exactly counted? So does it just have to be over the wall, or does it have to touch the ground at the end of the game?
Or is the robot still allowed to touch it?
It has to be not supported by the robot. So that means it can't touch it. It has to be really over the wall on the ground. I don't see a scenario where it's over the wall and not on the ground, to be honest. So it has to be that. It can't touch your robot anymore. So you have to make sure you do it at least like a second before, so you can make sure you're no longer touching it.
Okay. Some fun questions in the chat. Is it allowed to drop your wobble goal horizontally over the perimeter?
Yeah, there's no rules about it having to be straight up once it's down there. Of course, as I said earlier, that does risk that you lose the points for the rings that were over it, because the rings might slide off. But I don't see a reason why it wouldn't be allowed to do it horizontally. I wouldn't say it's advisable to strategize about building your robot like that, but I think it's legal.
Okay. Is it allowed to build a shooter for your wobble goal?
It is not allowed to build a shooter for your wobble goal. The rules specifically say that you have to put it down there. So as I said earlier, a small drop is of course allowed, but it's not the idea that you're throwing your wobble goal all over the field or over the wall.
Okay. Tijn, have you seen any videos of interesting teams with interesting strategies on the internet that you can explain, or maybe you have a loophole yourself you would like to express and tell to the teams?
So I think there's like two main ways to play this game. You can go for a low goal robot that can also score at the same time over the wobble goals. So these are basically the same height. Let's see if I line them up. Yeah, you could score into the low goal and have an output that also then hits the wobbly goal. So I think that's strategy number one. Strategy number two is of course shooting into either the high or the low goal. Personally, you have a lot of time this year because the league meets are a bit later than normal. I would focus on the high goal. I don't see a real reason if you have a shooter that's accurate enough to accurately hit the middle goal. There's no reason to not go for the high goal. Put a bit more time in, make them a bit more straight. You probably might need to make a vision system that automatically aims where you're shooting. It's going to be tough to aim by hand. I've seen some robots that can aim for either the middle or the high. I don't really see a reason to do that. It's only a more of a risk because there's one more movement, one more place where it can go wrong. So that's the two main strategies. Either go for low and wobble goal or for high and middle. Then after that, I think there's a lot of points to be scored in autonomous this year. You see every year that's a possibility, and some teams think it's not for them, it's a bit too tough. But I think if you look into it, it's actually a lot easier than you think to make a vision system. First has put out a lot of good software that makes it easy to detect how high a stack is, how many rings are in there. And from there on, it's only 3 more movements that you have to program. 1 movement to drive it in the first, second, or third position, and then go back to the line. There really is no reason not to try and do that. It might take a while. Your programmers in the beginning might not have that much time to do anything else, so they might as well look into using the camera of your phone that's on the robot anyways to detect how high the stack is. That's something I think a lot of teams, they often are a bit scared of that. They think the autonomous is a bit too tough for them, but there's a lot of points to be scored, and I think a lot more teams can do it than actually are doing it right now.
Okay, and then I have another question that was sent in private to me.
Since he couldn't answer the Microsoft Teams and also the chat isn't working for him. What happens with the rings that are stacked in autonomous? Are you allowed to use them in autonomous? Can you preload them for tally-up? Can you pick them up and shoot them in a goal? Or what happens with the stack of rings in autonomous?
Yeah, so the rules state that you can pick them up during autonomous and keep on scoring them. After autonomous, if you haven't used them, if they're still in the field, they'll stay over there. You can start picking them up in tally-up. You can't preload them, obviously. But if you pick them up during autonomous, it's fine. If you choose to wait until tally-up, that's fine as well. There's all the chances in the world to use these rings. Basically, they're there to be used, and whenever you want to use them, you can.
Okay, nice. What if we throw the wobble goal with 10 rings through the middle goal? Would we get points for all the rings?
I want to say no, because you can't throw wobble goals. I think you would probably, yeah, okay, so I'm thinking about it. You probably would get the points for the rings, but you'd lose more points due to the penalty for throwing the wobble goal and using it as a tactical advantage. So, yes, you would get points for the rings, but you'd lose more than that you would get. But good to see that teams are at least thinking outside of the box.
And then there was a question if a team is allowed to use a second expansion hub when we're using a control hub. But also Marland Robotica answered the question in the chat, so it's only allowed to use 1 control hub and 1 expansion hub max. Sorry, not allowed to use 1 control hub and 2 expansion hubs. And for those teams that are thinking of buying new stuff, definitely the control hub is worth the investment, since it skips 1 phone and the phone communication is integrated in the control hub. And I heard only positive things about the control hub.
Yeah, and for the team asking if you can use a second expansion hub, if you already have a control hub in there, I'm very curious to know why you would need one. The maximum motors are very easily contained into 2 expansion hubs or expansion hub and a control hub. There's really no reason to have 3 hubs on there.
Okay. I think this is a question for you as well, Tijn, since it's a little bit software related. There is a team having an issue with the FTC robot controller software, where the built-in functions are super slow, which causes their main loop to be very slow, and their very sophisticated speed regulation algorithms to cause the motors to fluctuate in speed badly. He's planning to work around this by adding a boatload of threads which do their own thing, but he's not sure, or she's not sure, if the SDK likes it. Can you further elaborate on it?
Ooh, this is a very tough call to make over a live stream. Of course, I don't know exactly what you're doing in your software, but I would look into what's happening. I haven't heard this before. I think regularly the FTC software works quite well for most teams. So I think somewhere you're making a mistake that you're not seeing right now. Your solution, in theory, might work. As I said, it's very tough to call over a live stream without me seeing the software. But I think you're making a mistake that you haven't seen yet. And I advise you to look a bit further into it. Maybe share your code with an experienced team, or share them with me if you want to. You can email them to me, I think, and I can take a look. But at first hand, I say somewhere something's going wrong, and I doubt it's the FTC basic code.
Yeah, it's a good point you point out as well. This is a perfect example of a question that can be answered on Slack. Since on Slack we have different channels, it's sort of like Discord, but then it's a little bit more office related, and it's easier to share documents as well. But there is a software channel called Programmers, and these types of questions are usually answered there, or a question there, and then you get a response pretty quick because there are also a lot of older alumni students, so students that have been doing FTC for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, and eventually they graduated high school, but they're still in the Slack or are volunteers for the FTC Netherlands community, and they can definitely help you out with these types of questions. So you could post your code, maybe you're missing something which is obvious for somebody else, and they can help you out. So if you're not in the Slack, ask other teams how to join, and I will check if I can make a join link right now, because it's only a couple days valid, but then you can join the Slack and ask questions there, and you would get a pretty quick answer. And there is also a good remark from another team in the Twitch channel where they said, be careful with where you place your control up, because if you put it too deep down in your robot or too close to the battery, it might block the radio signals. So definitely for the control up, but I would say for the expansion up as well, try to place it in a easy to reach location in your robot, and make sure that you don't build a shit ton of stuff on top of the control up. So make sure that you have the proper connection on.
Yeah, I think as a former FTC team member myself, you're going to experience at FTC events that there's a big level of what we used to call it worked yesterday syndrome. Robots break, especially after playing a few matches, and if you need to swap in a motor and you have to dig through
your audio disconnected for a while. I think.
Yeah. Now I'm okay. So what I was saying is, make sure your expansion up and your control are accessible. If you can't reach them to swap stuff out, it's going to be a major problem. It might even cause you to miss a match.
Okay. Do you need to go off the stack of rings in autonomous round, or may you have 3 different autonomous modes and change to one you're using depending on the rings?
So no, you have to sense how many rings there are in the stack using your robot. How it'll work, and I'll give a small explanation how it works before matches, is you'll put your robot down on the field, you'll put it ready, you'll initialize your autonomous. You won't start it yet, but you'll initialize it. And at that point, the referee, who could be me or any other referee that's refereeing this tournament, will ask you to put up your thumb if you're ready. I'm not sure. Yeah. So all team members, they'll have experienced this before. They know how forcibly I'll make you put up your thumb before we start matches. Once all teams have put up their thumb, I will ask Rob to initialize the field system. This will cause a number to be put up on the screen, and we will know how many rings we put on the field. By the time we put on this field, it's no longer allowed to change your software or to change anything on your robot. So by that time, your robot will have to do the same. We'll put up the stack, we'll count down 3, 2, 1, and you'll start your software, not change it, but you'll start the software that you already initialized. And at that point, your robot will have to make a decision by itself. So it'll have to read how many rings are in the stack and then drag the wobbly goal to the corresponding square with that.
Okay. And if you put the rings on the wobble goal before endgame starts, do they still count once the endgame starts?
Yes. So the rings are scored at the end of the game, but you can score are counted at the end of the game. Will be live counted, but they aren't really points. So that's another explanation I want to give. So during matches, we will often have a live scoring system that will tell you how many points a team has scored. That does also include the rings on the wobbly goal. That scoring system doesn't become official till after the match, after the referees have taken a look, have counted how many rings are still on the wobbly goal, how many have been scored, will correspond, maybe have a short discussion about if any penalties were scored. and that is the only time a score will be official. So the score on live stream is good to know. It might even be beneficial to your strategy, but it's not official till we call that it's official. That does mean that if you score rings in a wobbly goal, which you can do the entire game, they aren't really scored till the end game ends. So if I score on a ring, later on the game I push it over, the ring slides off, that ring is no longer scored. So that means you're not going to get any points for that. But you can score them before endgame. They just don't become points until after endgame.
Okay. Isn't it unfair if one team gets a stack of 4 rings and the other teams don't even get a stack? So as the team with the more rings can use those rings instead of needing to find them on the field later?
So that's a question we got a bit earlier as well. So my answer to that at that time was, you'll play 10 matches, you'll play, if you make it to the league championship, at least 5 more matches. That will make sure that it randomizes out a little bit. But yeah, I agree with you. If I was the person making this game, I wouldn't have done that way. It is indeed a little bit in favor of having a bit of luck while drawing how many rings you'll have. I don't think it'll make a major difference. In the end, teams kind of create their own luck. If they're that good, they'll overcome it. If they can't reach that level, they won't be able to overcome it, of course. But I agree to a certain extent that it's not a perfect rule. I wouldn't have done it that way.
And I also would like to point out that if you have the autonomous where you have no rings, so you have no stack, it would probably mean that you would have some spare time. So to make sure that you can even try to make your early auto more complicated. So if there is no rings, you can also adapt with a different autonomous strategy. Which
yeah, that's true. There's plenty of things to do during autonomous. You can shoot the 3 rings that you can preload yourself. You can move over the wobbly goal. You can park in some spaces. There is a lot to be done, and I wouldn't be too afraid of it moving you into a unfavorable position, having locked out and only getting 0 rings on the field.
And there is a remark from somebody that said that he read in Game Manual 2 that putting the rings on the wobble goal before endgame would get you penalty points. Can you elaborate on that?
I can pick up the phone and can this person specify where in the Game Manual he read that?
Yeah, it doesn't remember it, but I'll try to look it up. I have a different question.
Yeah, state your question, please.
Sorry, there was a lettering on it. Are you allowed to use during a match to use your laptop, connect to the control hub, and control from there, or do you need to use a phone?
No, you have to use a phone. It's very specific in the rules. You can only use a phone. You can only use officially even the phone specified. But I think in the FTC Netherlands we're a bit accepting in using other phones because it doesn't give you a general advantage. But it has to be a phone.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I found the wobble goal constraint rule that was talking about game manual 2. So you have rule GS9, which is the game-specific rule 9, which is in section 4 of game manual 2, page number 21, where it states GS9 wobble goal constraint. The robot may not place rings onto the wobble goals except during the endgame. A minor penalty will be assessed for each ring. So, in regards to the previous question, if you put one ring onto the wobble goal before endgame, it will get you one minor penalty. If you put 2 rings on there before endgame, it will give you 2 minor penalties, and etc. etc. And by doing it, at the end of the game, you would get a warning and a notation from the referees that, hey, you put the rings on there before endgame, so you know about it. So don't put them on the wobble goal before endgame, otherwise you get a minor penalty for each ring. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, let's just
play the video once more, and then we'll be back in.
Ron, maybe if there are no more questions, we can watch the videos of the remote game scoring system.
Okay.
Rob has 2 YouTube links received from me, and
Perfect.
maybe we can watch them. I don't know if Rob wants to use the video I had recorded. It's not a very good quality, but maybe he can show that video, or maybe I can tell more about the scoring system.
Tijn, does Rob has a video in place?
Rob, do you have a video in place? I think Rob needs a little bit more time. So if there's any question to fill up, like a minute, maybe 2.
Okay, maybe Irene can give a slight introduction onto
Yeah,
the
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Rob will show the video or that I have to tell something.
Rob, are you going to show the video?
Rob is going to show it, so if you can give it a little introduction, then Rob has time to set it up.
Yeah, does he only have to set up time for the YouTube videos, or is he also showing the video I pre-recorded?
It's just the YouTube videos that we're focusing on right now.
Then I will get my notes and I will tell something about it then right now.
Ron enjoying his banana at last.
Thank you.
Well, let's go to tell you a little bit more about the new scoring system. This new scoring system will be used for all official matches, but it can also be used by you to score practice matches or during a scrimmage organized by your team. The main goal in this difficult year is that all teams experience a great FTC season, but for most teams it will be really different than they are used to. But we all hope that you will learn and enjoy it just as much. Forced by the current situation, where live events cannot take place in many countries, First has developed new tools. Nicole and I just told you something more about the judging tool, but there is also a new tool for scoring the game. The scoring system has been developed to support the remote events. But it is a good system, and First decided to use it for all live events as well. We still hope that we will be able to organize live events, but Ron already explained that we will make that decision 2 weeks prior to the league which you are going to participate in. If it's not possible in February to have a live event, then we also have to switch to a remote event, and then you will have to use this system to score your robot matches. So we would like to encourage all teams to practice with the system. even if you want to organize a scrimmage, which we will hope that will be possible in the coming months, then please let us know the date. Then we will make sure that scrimmage is available in the scoring system, because you can't do that by yourselves. We are going to show you 2 short instruction videos. These are videos on YouTube, so you can watch them again at any time. We will share the links in the newsletter on our website and in Slack. And if you have any questions afterwards, just please let us know. So maybe Rob is ready to show the YouTube videos. Okay, then.
For the 2020-2021 competition season, in some regions, teams who participate in the First Tech Challenge will compete in remote events. For remote events, teams will perform the challenge by themselves from a modified 12-foot by 8-foot field set up at their home. Teams will use a cloud-based or internet-hosted system to score their matches from home. Match results and awards information from a remote event will be available online once the event has been scored and has concluded. In order to score a remote event, you will need the following: a stable internet connection, a device for entering in scores. This can be a laptop, Chromebook, tablet, or smartphone. A second optional device can also be used as a field or audience display. This optional device can be a laptop, Chromebook, or tablet. Something with a larger screen is recommended. If you do not have access to a reliable internet connection, then instead, you can use paper score sheets available from the firstinspires.org website to score your remote matches. After you've scored your matches, you can have someone, such as your coach or the remote event organizer, enter in your scores from the paper score sheets into the FTC scoring system once they have access to the internet.
The FTC scoring system is integrated with the firstinspires.org website. In order to be able to access the scoring system, your team must officially be registered for the current season. If your team has officially registered, then your mentor can log into the team's first dashboard account and access the scoring system. To log into the system, begin by visiting www.firstinspires.org and select the login link in the upper right-hand corner. Log into your team's first dashboard account and verify that your team is registered for the season. Type in the address ftc-scoring.firstinspires.org to navigate to the FTC scoring website. If your account was properly authenticated, you should see the FTC scoring landing page for your team. Team information is displayed at the top. A list of your team's remote events should be visible. A list of your team's traditional events should also be visible. If you do not see any remote or traditional events listed for your team, consult with your regional event host to verify that your team is registered for those events. Note, if you'd like to navigate to your landing page from anywhere in the FTC scoring system, click on the First Tech Challenge logo in the upper left-hand corner. This should take you back to your team's landing page. To configure a display from the device that will be used for the display, log into the FTC scoring system. Select Test Matches to navigate to the Test Matches page. From the Test Matches page, select the Open Display button to view the Display Options window. The Display Options window can be used to configure your display. Most teams will want to run their display in Field Display mode. To place the system into Field Display mode, look for the Display Settings section and select Field Display from the drop-down menu for the display mode. You can press the full screen button in the upper right-hand corner to place the display into full screen mode. Click the Save button when you're done to save your settings. Your display should now be ready for use.
So that was the first video we saw. It was about 5 minutes. If there's no questions, we're going to move on to the second video. This one is a little bit longer. It's about 10-12 minutes, but it will give you a clear view of how the remote events will work. So let's take a look, guys.
Let's take a look and see how the FTC scoring system can be used to conduct a test or practice match. A test or practice match is very similar to an official match, except when a test or practice match is complete, the match results are not saved to the database on the FTC scoring system for that remote event. Instead, when you're done with a test match, the scores are not saved anywhere. And you would want to use a test match when, for example, you just want to practice driving and keep track of your score during a practice driving session. Or you want to use the test match or practice match when you just want to practice using the scoring system and get familiar with scoring a real-time match. Again, when a test match is complete, none of that information gets saved. Another difference between a test match or practice match and an official match is that when a test match is begun, you have the option of canceling or restarting a test match. However, when you start an official match, once the official match has begun, the system won't let you stop or cancel that match. It just runs its complete course, and whatever score you input for that official match is whatever score will be recorded. So again, a test or practice match is what you want to use if you're just testing the system or learning how to use the system, or if you're just practicing with your robot. To get to the test match screen, select the test matches link on the left hand side. You'll see the play test match button and the open display. We've already talked about in this video how to use the open display button to configure your field display, and we can see we have a field display configured here. And let's take a look at the test match screen. Let's hit the play test match button and we navigate to the pre-match setup screen. The pre-match setup screen is where you have steps that the scorekeeper or the person who is keeping track of the score during your match has buttons that the scorekeeper can use to show information and set up your match that you're about to play. Okay, so let's take a look at these buttons. I can hit the show previews button, and you'll see that on the display screen right now it's blank, but if I hit that show preview button, which I just did, now the match name as well as the team and the team name is displayed in the match preview window of the field display. Okay, now I'm going to push the randomize button, which is the next step in this pre-match setup process. And if I press the show random button, it's going to roll a virtual die, and based on the outcome of the die, it's going to say you have to now go for this specific autonomous target during the autonomous portion of the match. And you can see over here that on the field display, the autonomous goal is also displayed. Okay, and in this case, there are 0 rings stacked, and the robot should try and drop the wobble goals into target zone A. Okay, and if I'm ready, I push the show match button, and that's going to display the field's match timer, which is shown over here, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's going to give information about the match. This is test match, and team 50550 is participating. And then it's going to show me the scoring bar at the bottom. And on the left-hand side, I have my autonomous tasks. And then on the right-hand side, I have my driver-controlled and endgame tasks. And currently, the score is 0. You can see over here. Okay. And as the scorekeeper, when the scorekeeper is at this point in the pre-match setup, they can check with the team. They say, drive team, are you ready? And if the drive team gives a thumbs up, then they'll check with the human player and say, human player, are you ready? And if the human player is ready, they give a thumbs up. And then the scorekeeper can push the start match button. There will be a 3-second delay, and then the autonomous portion of the match begins. And in the autonomous portion, the scorekeeper's screen, or this screen, will switch to a screen that will have an input page where I can add scores for the autonomous portion of this test match. When that 30-second autonomous phase is complete, I can review, then submit my autonomous scores. Then I can transition, and my screen will display the driver-controlled score sheet. And I can use that electronic score sheet to input the scores during the driver-controlled portion, and then later on to the end game portion of the match. Okay, so I'm going to push this start match button, and then you'll see that there'll be a short countdown, and I can enter in the autonomous scoring goals. Autonomous scoring results during the autonomous portion. Just a quick note, at the bottom of this screen, because this is a test match, I have the option of resetting the test match. If this were an official match, this button would not be visible, because for an official match, once you start the official match, again, it's going to play through, and you have to submit the results. You know, even if the wheels fall off on your robot, if it's an official match, you have to submit those official results for that remote event. Okay, but since we're doing a test match, we actually can stop and reset the test match at any time using that reset test match button. Okay, so I'm going to push the start match button. You'll see the countdown. And then if we look at our display screen, you'll see that our display screen is counting down, and the first 30 seconds is autonomous. And if we look at our scorekeeper screen, we'll see that the scorekeeper can enter in the scorekeeping tasks for the autonomous phase. So let's say the robot delivered wobble goal to the target zone A, and then it delivered a second wobble goal to target zone A, and then it knocked down the low goal, and it knocked down the center power shot. Then it navigated. As I'm doing that, the score is changing on the screen of the field display. Okay? So now the autonomous portion is over, and you can see that it's blinking yellow saying, hey, you're still in the autonomous input mode, scorekeeper, but we're on the driver-controlled portion. So I'm going to submit my autonomous score, and now I'm going to start keeping track of my driver-controlled score. And as the robot is scoring in the high goal, let's say it gets 3 in the high goal, I am, keeping track on the input, and the display is reflecting that new score. So you can see it has 3 high goals. And let's say it got 2 mid goals and then 1 low goal, and then you'll see that the score is updated. Now it's 81, and I have 3, 2, 1 as my goals. Okay, and basically during the driver controlled portion, I can keep track of the driver controlled scoring elements, and I'm going to keep track of the high, mid, and low goals, because during driver control, these are the controls, or these are the scoring options that they have. I can also keep track of penalties. Let's say my team, and I'm honest, got a minor penalty, maybe because they handled too many game elements or something. I can click on this minor penalty, and their score will be adjusted. And I can keep going, during the driver control portion before the end game starts. So let's say they get 7 high, 6 mid, and then 3 low. Okay, so now it's reflected over here, and this score also reflects that minor penalty. Okay, so now I'm approaching the end game, and you'll see that the whistle's blown, so now I know the last 30 seconds, and now I can use these particular controls to score the end game task. So let's say it knocks the center power shot down again, and let's say it was able to move wobble goal to the start line, and let's say it was able to move wobble goal number 2 to the drop zone. And all of those scores will now be reflected in the screen over here, and in their scores, and on the driver controlled. And now the driver controlled is over, so I can review my driver control inputs and make sure I've scored the driver control portion properly. And let's say they scored 1 high goal at the end, right before the buzzer was over. So I'll add that, and I submit my driver controlled. And again, if I wanted to, because it's a test match, I can just reset it. but if it's an official match, I wouldn't have that option. I submit my driver controlled, and then the scorekeeper sees the review screen, and I can review the autonomous and driver controlled scores and make adjustments if I had to. Okay. But in this case, it looks good to me. And so when I'm done, I could submit my final scores. And then as I do the submit my final scores, you'll see that this field display will show the final score over here. Okay. And that's how I do a test match. And again, the difference between a test match and an official match is that nothing gets saved anywhere. So now that I'm done, that test match is displayed on the screen, but it's not saved anywhere on the FTC scoring system. And that's how you can conduct a test match. And real quickly, let me just show you again. Let's go through this process again, and let's reset the test match. I'm going to show the preview, so now I can see on my display the preview for the next match, which is another test match. I'm going to randomize it, and this time I have to go for target goal B. And then I'm going to show the match information, okay? And then let's say I'm going to start my test match. So I get my countdown, and then the test match begins, and I'm in autonomous phase. And then let's say, you know, I'm just scoring stuff, keeping track of the score. And let's say I got that. And let's say, oh, you know, wait, they wanted to stop the match. Because it's a test match, if I hit the reset test match button, it will stop your test match. But again, you can't do that if it is a official match. So that's how you conduct a test match using the FTC scoring system, and that's a really good opportunity, and we encourage teams to practice both driving using the scoring system as well as learning how to be a scorekeeper and keeping track of your score during your matches. It's important to note that the FTC scoring input screens assumes that the scorekeeper is standing outside of the field perimeter and behind the power shot targets. This means that the left power shot target from the scorekeeper's perspective is the same as the rightmost power shot target from the audience perspective.
So that's the first two videos in a series of 4 videos about remote events. I would recommend everyone to take a look at the other 2 videos. They're all on the First Tech Challenge YouTube channel. This is a channel that has a lot of more information that can be valuable for teams about building robots, making engineering notebooks, preparing presentations. All the award categories are elaborated on. So take a good look at this YouTube channel, and especially the 2 other videos about remote events. So, are there any questions that we haven't answered yet?
What if you accidentally submit a match?
I think you can always contact us, and maybe we can.
Well, I think then that match will count. We cannot delete matches. When you use the scoring system for an official match, just please take care in what you are doing. You will have to submit all your matches via the system. So if you do that by accident, then that will be an unofficial match.
Yeah, so always good advice. Be very careful with what you do. Make sure that you do make the right decisions. But of course, take a lot of care, especially during official tournaments.
And practice a lot with the system, so you cannot make any mistakes.
The test matches are for. You can practice, you can test it beforehand. It's always advisable to take a good look at software that you're going to use. Because at this time we don't know for sure that we are going to have to use it in the Netherlands, but even so, it's never a bad idea to study up a little bit.
Are there any other questions?
Maybe it's time to take one last look at the videos the teams made.
Yeah, one sec for those that missed it.
If you're not on Slack yet, which is quite an active platform with a lot of different teams, and it's not only for team members or coaches, everybody can join and there's no limit per team. I will send the video, or I'll send a link to the Slack again in the Twitch chat right now. So if you click on the link, it's quite easy to set it up, and then you can join the Slack channel, which has multiple. You can join the Slack group which has multiple channels where you can communicate with different teams, ask questions, help each other out. And we were also just talking about maybe setting up a specific channel for scoring related questions where everybody can help each other out. So please log into Slack and try to check it regularly and post your questions there, and then we can watch the video once more. Hit it, Rob.
Working on it, it's coming up.
Okay.
And today we're coming with an update of our last few weeks. So lately we've been designing a lot of robot parts in CAD, and we've also been building a lot of prototypes. So we are currently testing our prototype for the shooter and the intake.
So as you can see, we're shooting right now. This is our shooter. Our shooter can hit consistently. We've hit like 10 in a row without moving.
Today we've done an interview with a TV network here in the Netherlands. It's explained first to some people, explain what we do here. And that was really fun to do.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, always great to see what the teams are up to. I'd encourage people to keep sharing on the Slack or social media, but we're always interested to see what you guys are up to, so keep sharing until the league meets come.
Are there any other questions? No further questions. Then I'll have another link. So as we said, please join the Slack channel. If you're not in Slack yet, it's definitely one of the better platforms for teams to stay in touch. If you go to the FTC Netherlands.eu website, on the bottom of the website, there is a blog called Stay in the Loops, where you can subscribe to our newsletter. Just fill in your email address and press subscribe, and then you'll be subscribed to our newsletter, which is sent regularly with updates in regards to game manuals, judging, scoring system, etc. So it's definitely good to be subscribed for the newsletter, and it doesn't have to be only one team member or one coach. Everybody can sign up, and also just keep an eye on the website in general. On the homepage, we'll be adding more information throughout the season as well.
Ron, can I add something about the newsletter? There will be two newsletters, two different newsletters. I'm going to send newsletters only for teams who are registered via our registration. And that will be information about when the league meets are, and when and how they can register for the league meets. I'm not going to send that to all subscribers of the newsletter, because there are a lot of people who are just interested in things we are going to do in the season. So specific team-related items I will be sent to in a newsletter to the coaches' email address who are in our system.
Okay.
So
perfect.
Yes. Okay.
And this was one of the events today that we were planning on doing remotely to answer your questions. We're planning on doing similar stuff maybe in December and January, maybe a little bit different setup. And instead of the traditional Q&A format we ended up today with you guys asking questions in the chat, we'll see if we can upgrade it where you can get in touch with each other a little bit more as well, so you can interact and talk to each other, maybe present something about your own robot. So definitely keep an eye on the website and the newsletter and Slack to make sure you're updated with all those new events coming up. If there are no more questions within the first within the first minute right now, then I think we'll be signing off. There is a question in regards to what is RGB. I think they're talking about LED lighting, so it's red, green, blue. So it's RGB LED. So when they're talking about lights, they usually refer it to as RGB.
Format used to define color coding, so it's often indeed a reference to LEDs, because it has 3 pins, red, green, and blue, and you can all modulate it together to form the color you want.
And generally within first, it's a joke that it's either going to be a water game or you need more RGB to upgrade the performance of your robot.
For teams that are interested, it's always, of course, allowed to decorate your robot with more LED lighting. I wouldn't say it's performance enhancing, but it's at least visually enhancing the system.
And what you could be using RGB as a functional element as well. I haven't seen it too much within FTC yet, but I know they're using it in FRC, where, for example, if you would have to line up near a tower where you have to shoot a goal, they would put a small flashlight on the robot, and then you can shine on the field elements. Or whenever you have 3 rings, there might be an LED light on your robot which turns from red to green, knowing that you have 3 rings in your robot. So you can also use it as a driver feedback, but usually the FTC field is pretty small, and you can look at all the details in the game, so you don't really need it. But if your field is bigger, you could use LED lighting as a driver feedback as well for your tele operations. Or, for example, when you're going to build a big shooter, which has to speed up to a certain RPM, so to a certain speed with frames per minute, you could have a light on your robot which turns red until your wheel has sped up, fast enough, and then it turns green, and then you can hit the shoot button for your rings to be shooting. And I think there are no other further questions. Besides some technical issues along the way, I think we as FTC Netherlands at least are very enthusiastic about the end result, and we would like to thank everybody for their questions and interaction throughout the chat. And we will be wishing you the best of luck during the Corona times to build your robot, work on your presentations, and make the best of it. If you have any other questions, feel free to call us, email us, send a message on Slack. We will be there for you at any time, and also ask questions to other teams because they might have questions faster than we do. So that's it for now. We'll be leaving the Teams meeting, and Rob will be putting on the standby live screen. So the live stream will be going on for 5 more minutes until 1 o'clock, and then we'll go offline. So you have 5 more minutes in the chat to spam whatever you want. And we would like to thank you, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining. Bye.
Enjoy the spamming, guys. It's been fun.
Alumni means that I have an entire world of connections.
It allows me to volunteer and give back to the community.
I think FIRST can really prepare you to solve any number of the world's big problems. The skills that you're going to be learning can completely change the future.
For centuries, sports have played an integral part of our culture. Moving, collaborating, competing, celebrating. We rally around our athletes, lift them up, and admire their awe-inspiring moments and stories that give us hope. The nature of traditional sports is shifting, and we have the power to be forces for change and redefine the game. No matter whether our talents lie on the court, in the lab, or with a controller in hand, there's an athlete inside each and every one of us. Let's work together to champion every sport and every person that plays the game. It's time for us to revolutionize the way we play and move. It's time to be game changers.
First Tech Challenge challenges kids ages 12 to 18 to program, design, build, and compete with robots.
Once you get the challenge, you figure out your game plan.
You build a robot so that you can complete many challenges.
Teams use a reusable kit to program robots in a variety of coding languages.
Every year you also learn more and more about coding, so then your code's gonna get better and better.
Personally, I do not learn hearing about it. But hands-on is just go into it. Instead of saying, oh, I know how to build this robot. I can say, I built this robot.
In First Tech Challenge, students are developing a broad range of skills.
Manufacturing, hardware, troubleshooting, but there's also a lot of things that you learn that you wouldn't necessarily think about. People skills.
Problem-solving skills, helping one another, helping other teams.
The program draws so many students that come in who just want to do the marketing, who just want to do fundraising.
You need to do fundraising because you need to buy kits and parts and everything you need for the year.
And that's a great thing that the kids learn very early on.
The model of FIRST has provided incredible opportunities for the students to interact with professionals.
Whenever I asked my mentors the question, they always flipped the question around and asked, where would you find the answer to that question if I weren't here? They slowly built my confidence up so much more to a point where we weren't asking them questions, we were just going.
Each team has to compete at a local event, win awards at the local event, and then they're able to move on to the FIRST championship.
You walk into the room and there's that smell, the smell of robots.
There's different languages, different culture. It's just the best thing ever.
I think it's incredibly important for youth to see careers in science and engineering as a possibility for them.
High school participants have access to over $80 million in scholarships from colleges, universities, and technical programs. FIRST Tech Challenge is one of 4 engaging FIRST programs.
First in one word, wow.
Fun!
First is inspiration.
First is amazing.
First is hope.